If the truth can be spoken so as to be understood, it will be believed. The genetically modified society in which we live has no heart, no psychic center. Indeed, it actually encourages us to concentrate on looking out for ourselves. We, supposedly its citizens, share and feel no common vision, nor does our community have any agreed overall purpose. The signs of social breakdown are now so common we've begun to think they're natural. What we most lack is the social bonding that links us all together as equal on some spiritual level. This is written from what I believe is the longing in the secret heart of each of us for the truth, and for the better life which we sense could be, or which we remember from some distant past.
Since the beginning of time, mankind has used music and dance to commune with nature and the spirit of the universe.
I can kind of envision maybe one person with a lot of machines, tapes, and electronic setups, singing or speaking and using machines.
At some point in the 1980s, there was a little mini revolution.
We are looking at a machine called an electronic sound synthesizer.
In that time, the whole music thing changed.
I got a call from a friend. He told me that there's a new sound, a new form of music that's opening up people's chakras.
This was so new and fresh, like with synthesizers and drum machines. They called it machine gun music, even because it just had the bass drum boop, 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 boop.
The technology enabled a certain kind of music that was so unique that it created a way for people who were really on the cutting edge of novelty in culture to join together, almost like a secret society.
There was rumor that these underground parties were going on.
A friend of mine kept telling me about raves.
A group of older friends of mine invited me to come to a large dance party.
I remember walking up the stairs. It was this huge warehouse. I heard this sound coming out of the sound system. It was almost like the sound of static coming out of speakers.
There's these incredible lighting systems, and the sound is resonating the walls and the floor. And there's this music that I started to fall in love with, which is this electronic music.
When you first hear it, it's kind of uncomfortable. You're like, oh, I don't like that.
I wasn't quite sure what it was, really. It wasn't coming from guitars and drums.
Then something snapped, and all of a sudden I was addicted, and it totally changed my whole life.
It moved me to a point where there was no turning back. I was moving forward with the sound.
When I first heard it, I'm like, I don't know what this is. I don't know how into it I am. And then I started going to the parties, and I realized that the parties, there was a deeper connection there. And so you could go and dance all night long and really experience that with a whole bunch of other people that were experiencing it.
Being around that energy of 1,000 people dancing together to the same music in this huge club transformed something inside of me.
I was changed forever, and all I could think about was like how I was going to get to the next one.
There was an undercurrent of something much deeper happening than just a show or a party. There was something really profound happening at these events.
There was something happening within the dance for myself and what I was witnessing around me. I was really interested in the music and what it was doing to my dancing, to my states of consciousness.
I was blown away by the power of what I was experiencing on the dance floor at these events.
Feeling that power inside, feeling that sensation, it was so much more than just a party.
People just found that the states that they were getting into on the dance floor with hour after hour of this continuous beat were something beyond anything they had ever experienced before.
There's no freer a sensation of allowing something else that's bigger than you, in this case a sound wave, right, to move you. So much of our life is spent directing everything that we do. We're human doings instead of human beings, right, for the most part. That when you can just let it go for that moment and just allow it in and allow it to move you, that sense of freedom really, I mean, that's when it clicked for me. Right then was when it clicked for me. And I was hooked, of course.
Electronic music feels to me to connect to a language that's inside of me already.
When you're in front of the speakers and you're feeling the bass in your bones, there's just something that moves your body for you.
Once you begin dancing, you begin to cleanse the mind, the thoughts. Everything physical goes away, and the rhythm and the vibration goes into the movement of the body.
All electronic music is made for the intention of having an ecstatic or transformative experience.
It's designed to drive certain kinds of intensities, whether they're rhythmic repetition or certain arpeggios or certain ways of mutating sound that mimic or stimulate kind of altered states.
You're listening to sounds that you've never heard before, that have never existed before, and therefore I think they can take you to places that you've never been before as well.
The type of sound, the type of dynamic range, and the regularity of the rhythm that's possible through electronic music does have some direct physical connection on a vibrational level to your heart, through the heartbeat, through the primary bass beat of the music. It has the potential to give us experiences that can wake us up on a higher level.
The idea of how the brain might be working in this regard. When you think about a radio transmitter and a radio receiver sending a signal, you dial through the stations until you get resonance, harmony between the sending unit and the receiving unit, in this case a radio. The human brain and human body actually works the same way. Most of the signals coming to us, they pass through us like the static between the stations. Occasionally, they arrive at a window frequency where you get this resonance effect, where you get a harmony between transmitter and receiver, enhancing, zeroing in on those things that you can literally tune the individual to open up these areas of the brain that otherwise lie relatively dormant.
You know, you feel the music in your gut sometimes, or you hear the music up here. It's like you are being played like an instrument, you know, moving through the chakras. And the chakras are overlaid over the endocrine system, the master controllers of the body. So, you know, it's releasing all these chemicals and hormones.
That entrancement, that bliss that you reach, the higher states that you reach, it's touching your heart, it's touching your mind, which is like the visionary doorway.
That's the center, that's the pulse of, you know, of those deep trances that happen in a festival or in a sacred dance. That's the heartbeat of the drum.
It is kind of a gateway and a doorway from the left brain to the right brain, from the structured analytical world into the more unbounded, mystical, unlimited realms of imagination and spirituality.
In the way that a composer would create a masterpiece, a classical masterpiece. Like the concept that a producer goes for is to make an electronic dance song that actually does more than just make you dance. I guess it makes you think, you know, it's more like classical. It really makes you think about the next part that's coming, the layering of the sounds, the melodies or the harmonies that's being created, or the chaos and then the order. I was a pretty depressed, kind of negative guy, and then I found this music and started playing it and started sharing it with the world.
I started out in the punk generation, you know, slowly growing up, get rebellious, whatever, and started drinking a whole bunch and just really getting deep into myself and not really caring about what was happening. Then I moved down to San Francisco and I found electronic music. And from electronic music, I just learned how to dance and how to express myself through dance. And that really helped open me up.
I remember like growing up, it was kind of weird if you didn't go on the dance floor with a dance partner. At one point I remember like in high school we kind of broke, or middle school even, we broke through that and we were just like, we just want to dance, and there was only like a small crew of us that experienced that. So then I remember the first one I came here where there was like hundreds, you know? I was like, oh my God, this is my home.
With parties happening all over the globe, this new movement began to weave itself into a worldwide culture.
By about 1993, you had a rave scene in almost every state.
The whole rave cultural virus was spreading out across the world.
While the media characterized this phenomenon to be a dangerous party, personal accounts continuously claimed life-changing experiences were happening on the dance floor.
It was immediately assumed that the music was linked with drugs.
Rave culture has become a culture labeled by drug-induced experiences to reach higher states.
The rave scene, people were definitely on something that was making them smile a heck of a lot more.
Millions of youth were taking ecstasy and listening to American dance music.
You have this continuous mix of dance music with the drug ecstasy. That very much increases the power quotient of the experience, and it also really changes the way that you relate to the music. It's something that you feel in your body. It's something that opens up internal vistas inside your mind, and also because of empathic qualities of MDMA, you're not experiencing that alone. You're experiencing that as part of this larger group of people. You know, you're experiencing it as something larger than yourself.
I think that this MDMA created a social environment that wasn't predatory, that was more supportive between men and women, that was more loving.
I was no longer afraid or shy about being around thousands of people I didn't know.
I wasn't really into the whole electronic music thing. I liked organic music with instruments and musicians. I didn't really think there was anything creative about computers making sounds. And then I made my way out onto the dance floor and I started to dance. And the beat became my heartbeat. And everybody there was plugged into some invisible landscape of sound. This beat was all of our heartbeats because we were joined into the heartbeat of the dance floor.
While I was dancing, we were all the same. We were all on the same level. We were all in the same music.
And something inside of me was struck. Something in my core was totally changed. And from that moment on, I couldn't stop dancing.
Everybody who ever has been there, you don't even have to talk about him. There's something in you, it will never go away. It's a genetic experience you have because it's such a beautiful experience to be with, like I said, black and white and green and yellow, small talk, poor and rich, and be there and be one.
There's something really magical about sharing a dance floor with people. When you let that wall down, all the boundaries, the face, the mask that you put up in your daily life for work, for school, for whatever, it comes down and you can just be. And the experience that you're sharing with these other people on the dance floor, you're sharing it with them. It's like this creation of freedom together. It's like you're building this sense of freedom together.
It's one thing if you're dancing alone in your room, and it's another experience altogether when different individuals are experiencing oneness through music, hearing the same thing, they're going through the same arc of emotions.
When that little split-second thing happens and everybody in the audience goes, wow, did you see that? That's the moment. That crack lets in all the light. It opens up all the possibilities.
You can feel it for a moment when everything disappears and all it is you and the sound and your heartbeats and your breath. You can feel that, but you become one all of a sudden. That's a huge force.
When you combine it with a community, no matter how large or small, that's also going into this trance or this state of bliss together, it just heightens and amplifies the experience.
What appealed to me about it was that these were people who are seriously interested in expansion of consciousness.
They're all about, here we are, it's the planetary dance, this is the next evolution of mankind and stuff like that.
And it was based on the fact that we were sharing this experience together on the dance floor, and they understood the implications of what that meant for the rest of our lives and for the larger transformation of the larger culture, and that was it. I was signed on.
And it planted a seed for sure, and people resonated with it.
Where would humanity be without some collection of people who are trying to be that leading edge tip of growth, scouting out the uncharted realms of consciousness and human development, trying to see what works and what doesn't.
The whole thing was generated by a feeling of community and togetherness that existed in that space when it was created. So that was something really to believe in. It was purely experiential. I mean, the same sort of thing occurs when people get together and do ceremony where there's like that kind of, really deep bonding. And it seemed obvious, that kind of community was transformative.
In this early time, the culture had reached a tipping point. Their creed of peace, love, and unity through dance seemed to be moving them closer and closer to a micro-utopia with every party. mighty euphoric wave of peace, love, and unity seemed just over the horizon. But due to the quickly surfacing bulk of legal issues involved with throwing parties,
Rave parties, they are now the focus of a multi-agency task force.
Negative media propaganda,
Deadly teenage orgies of sex and booze called raves,
law enforcement crackdowns, and problems with drug abuse, the culture began to come down from its euphoric and revolutionary wave. As a few strands of daylight began to shine through the cracks and walls of the warehouse, the dark, mysterious magic began to be exposed of its smoke and mirrors. The thin line between reality and delusion began to become all the more distinct.
Probably about half of the people that got involved in the rave scene in the first place were really seeking community of people who were of like mind. The rave scene gave the appearance of that at first, but as you got into it more and you started to see how much drugs played a part in that bonding, I started to see that that was pretty much that was the glue that was holding us together in the rave scene. And I wanted more.
People started to recognize that they're fairly empty, that they wanted to go deeper, wanted to go further. And we all saw the potential within the events as being medicinal in that way.
I was looking for more. I was looking for a community that was really based in the mundane and the real things, as well as in the mystical and spiritual things. People that I could call community every day and not just on the weekends when we were going to parties.
For many, this era marked the death of the rave scene. For many of those internal and devoted, these years marked a time of digression and decline, and the obvious need to change their party behaviors or give up the party completely.
After the phenomena became a little more popular and more widespread, it attracted a lot of people who didn't necessarily have the same root understandings.
The split that started to happen, of course, was between those of us who wanted the family vibe, wanted to keep it small and real, and then those who saw an incredible money-making opportunity.
It was getting super commercialized.
People were promoting in high schools, and like all these kids started coming. It was a different vibe when you start getting 15, 16-year-old kids coming out, and a lot more money was coming. It was getting very lucrative.
They started becoming either really super commercialized, massive events, or if you tried to do underground events, they were getting busted right, left, and center because the cops was on to the culture by now.
Two very vital things happened at this time. With the law out for the sound of pulsating bass in all the underground locations in the city, the traditional warehouse rave became far too dangerous. Groups began setting up their sound systems in remote locations far away from the cities. They gathered deep in the woods, far out in the desert, on remote beaches and dunes all over the coast. These parties were held in extreme secrecy. No flyers or promoters advertised for these parties. They were strictly word of mouth, and the directions were kept in secret until the very beginning of the party.
LA, San Francisco had this rave scene that was like the dueling banjos or something almost, you know, when we would all travel back and forth between parties. And when Wicked was going off, we would go up to those parties. They were legendary on the beaches of Santa Cruz.
Probably better known for my time at Wicked Sound System here in San Francisco.
My name's Trevor Moontribe, DJ, producer, been involved with Moontribe Collective since 1993.
It was the beach that kind of led to the whole thing, really. We started off throwing the full moon parties right from the get-go. You know, every full moon we decided, okay, let's have another one.
And then a friend said, I know a place we can do a party in the desert. So we all met up at Griffith Park one day to organize it.
We rented a cheap sound system from JK Sound, I think it was.
First of all, we brought 2 totally crappy speakers to the desert. So we had a really shitty little sound system.
And they gave us the, crummiest little clip speakers that they had and a basic generator. And we used my decks, and we dragged it all down to Baker Beach.
The moon was setting on one side and the sun was rising on the other, and it was pretty awesome to see that. We started doing it every full moon from that point.
There was probably about 40 of us or something. You were hanging out with friends on the beach, tripping balls, perhaps, doing a bit of ecstasy, feeling empathetic toward everybody. And the energy was just the dancers amongst themselves, just bringing it up. And, our job was just to help it, come up and keep it there. full moons were very psychedelic, and the fact that we really removed people from a club perspective and took them outside. We found all kinds of beaches and parks in Northern California, and it just allowed people the freedom. You saw the collective synapses snapping in people's brains, I guess.
The Santa Cruz Wicked beach parties on the full moon really inspired us because it was really a tribal thing, you know, like there were people there just getting really, really wild. And we realized at that point that that was what we were going there for. It's for that energy. That became the goal.
I remember, of course, my first Moon Tribe, like it was yesterday. When I found Moon Tribe, it was like so familiar to me. This group of people who just let the moon give them an excuse to gather together, to celebrate each other, to celebrate life, and to just be free and experience that.
Moon Tribe is a collective that has been gathering and dancing under nearly every full moon for the past 18 years.
Before internet communication connected the greater scene, these small groups organized themselves, unaware this transformation was happening to electronic dance communities everywhere.
With Moon Tribe really inspired my community when they came to visit with their full moon events.
We found a lot of parallels within what other tribal dance groups were doing.
That was that realization that there's all these other groups that are doing stuff that's so similar.
My name is Solus, and I am a part of Ecstasis Dance.
My name is Sobi, and I'm a native of the BC dance tribe known as Tribal Harmonics.
My name is Osiris Ishpapalo, and I've been hosting conscious intentional events here at Isis Oasis. These events have allowed our community and tribe to gather outside of normal society standards of partying.
Yeah.
We're creating a place of genuine connection with each other and as a community, as a tribe, as a collective. My personal evolution started in dark clubs, dark spaces in New York. And I always said to myself, man, this would be so good if we could do it outdoors in nature.
And around the time that I started going to like full moon gatherings out in the mountains and started helping create those in the Northwest and in the Seattle region, started returning back to the earth, returning to sacred places.
Witnessing the full moon at these gatherings or connecting with the trees and the elements, it reminds us of that connectedness and the fact that we're not separate from nature.
You can't help but be influenced by the natural environment that you're in. Just that simple act of dancing and feeling your connection to the earth, that's amplified when you're literally on the earth. You can feel that connection more.
Just intuitively there was this sense that we were connecting with a tradition that has been long a part of our species.
stepping out of the artificial time cycle of modern day life and stepping into a full moon cycle with some regularity. Life becomes a little bit less linear and more timeless.
As these small communities began emerging all over the globe, something else began to happen at these parties.
They would have spontaneous altars that people would put together. They would have spontaneous kind of hand-holding circles when the sun came up in the morning.
I remember opening some gatherings with a circle, and it was completely new to people. And a lot of hesitation and a lot of people wondering, what am I doing, getting into a circle right now?
When the last song came on, everyone rushed in, and it was this several minute hug, super hug.
It was that moment that I saw people experiencing a heart-to-heart connection without even necessarily knowing each other.
It was unbelievable to us. It was beautiful. There were often spontaneous hand-holding circles would sometimes erupt, and I remember people would start spinning around. It would just, me and Yana would look at each other and go, wow, what's going on here,
In the middle of the peak of the event at midnight, they would stop everything to do a ritual, to tune everyone in and to offer something up for the intention of the gathering.
That's when I sort of could say that intention began to enter into dance culture.
Many in the electronic music culture were claiming that this sacred reconnection to nature was the source of their movement. They believed that dance floor transcendence had awakened a higher, more natural way of being that exists within each of us.
We have linked into a deeper, more ancient understanding of what dance and the intention that we hold with each other is all about.
It was like these principles, these fundamental principles of divine realization, of truth, of God, of religion, were just kind of nonchalantly oozing out of everybody who's going into these dance parties and experiencing communion with each other through music.
At the heightened experience of any different religion or spiritual expression is music and singing and dancing.
Because what we are reenacting is actually the oldest form of religion that we have.
Dance traditionally was a part of
It's a part of your healing systems. It's part of how we pray, part of how we communicate. It's part of how we participate in nature. You know, if you look at nature on a kind of a macro lens, you zoom out from the earth, you zoom out to where you're seeing the solar system, it's spinning in this perfectly beautiful pattern, right? And you drill down into what's happening on the planet, even flowers come up and they spiral out and they do this beautiful blossom that is a kind of dance. You watch hummingbirds move. Everything is kind of precisely patterned. You know, we've created our own little organizational system where we move, and even that, although it seems chaotic, if you zoomed out, would probably look like some kind of a pattern, some kind of a fractal even, you know? So dance is kind of our way of co-creating with nature. It's our way of participating.
Since the beginning of time, mankind has used music and dance to commune with nature and the spirit of the universe.
Well, the ancient goddess rituals and traditions and earth-based spirituality in general has always been about ecstatic religious experience. And that means experience rather than dogma, rather than a belief system. It's about how we experience the world around us.
In my teens, I was kind of like atheist and agnostic. At first I was like, I don't believe in God. And then I was like, well, I don't know. It's just too big and I don't even want to deal with it. It's too confusing. And then through psychedelic experiences and through all-night dance experiences, I was just like, I couldn't deny that there was definitely something a lot bigger than me going on.
I'd always questioned, what is God? How can God exist? And this was the key, because this was something that I felt connected me outside of time. So I knew that this was a part of divinity. This was a part of God.
Some people may have had religious or spiritual experiences in other contexts, but for a lot of people I found in my research, this was really the first place where they had those kinds of experiences. So just to see that that's real, that these other dimensions of consciousness are real, that's a huge breakthrough in and of itself. So not only are they having this experience, but basically that's the whole point of putting on these kind of events. Once you have that experience, then you see that there's a whole culture, this rave culture, which is devoted to having these kinds of experiences.
Through all this medicine, through the plants, through the music, through the raves, through the dance parties, through the altars, through the rituals, we can open ourselves up to receive this information and know what the word God is.
How can you describe or put a name on that which is indescribable? Many people have tried, so many different descriptions and many different kind of names have come up, but nothing can describe that. It's beyond thought, it's beyond mind, it's beyond comprehension. You can become one with it through high samadhis, but you can never describe it. You can attempt, as many people have done through the whole history of humanity, but some of those descriptions have now caused differences and separation, thinking it's two different things. There is only one, and it's all around you.
That's what established religions have done, is said God is separate, God is other, God is outside of you. And this is what I think has been the great fall from grace, is humanity disconnecting from the experience of spirituality. Part of what we're doing at these gatherings is regaining our natural intuitive wisdom and redeveloping this deep experience of the divine.
This is a ritualized, intentionalized, very sacred art form that opens up access to, to the divine aspect of who you are. And really that's the bottom line, is we are divine human beings.
What does that actually mean? It gives us access. I think that's where all the juice is. We have access. We have opportunity to access something greater and really move into a living, breathing reality. a living, breathing spiritual reality.
The dance floor is, for many people, a platform to experience, to enter, to access the realms of the sacred.
I think we tap into it, we feel it in that moment, that peak experience, that God experience that we have on the dance floor.
For the same purpose that we tune in to meditation, which is just letting go of conscious thought, of stopping the thinker, the doer, that rhythm can allow for that same kind of meditation and that same kind of just dissolving sense of ego and a sense of needing to be something other than what you are, which is just pure being.
There's sacred dance traditions in many of the different mystical cultures. So there was a way of moving into an active state of meditation where you're merging with your heartbeat and your biorhythms and everybody's breathing together in one synchronous unit, surrendering to what's happening in that moment, being entirely present to it, entirely available to it.
You can't really talk about dance without also talking about music and rhythm. What we know is that repetitive rhythm can help us enter a trance-like state, which is also what we call our theta waves. So the brain has different waves in which it operates. One of these waves is called the theta waves. So it's the state that we go into when we're very deeply relaxed in a deep meditation, or when we're under hypnosis, or when we're just kind of zoned out.
You know, there's a practice of what would be called shamanic journeying, where you use a drum and a rattle, and you play it 7 cycles per second, 4 to 7 cycles per second, which would be thought to be a theta wave in the brain entrainment process. The drum allows the brain to entrain to that certain cycle per second.
So when we're in this zone, this is when we experience bliss. This is when we experience a kind of transcendent moment. When we're in our theta waves, it also kind of creates a permeability in the brain. So it allows material that was once relegated to the unconscious mind to come forward into consciousness. So we can often promote insights kind of dropping into our awareness, or solutions to problems, or new ideas and innovation. It's also a time when the unconscious mind is impressionable. So we can also lay down really healthy belief systems, and we see this through sacred chanting or the use of mantra. We can kind of reprogram the mind in any way we want to when we're in that state.
Most electronic dance music doesn't really have lyrics. It doesn't have the traditional song structures that you normally look for. Therefore, it's kind of freed from its moorings, and it's much more able to kind of go into this other paradigm, which I see as a paradigm in a lot of traditional cultures around the world, but also which I think is emerging in rave culture, which is the paradigm of music as a spiritual technology for altering consciousness in a way that allows you access to spiritual dimensions.
Through dance and through music and through song, as we all start connecting and getting into a different vibration, we're moving past this three-dimensional consciousness that we've been stuck in. And moving into that, you begin to see a different world that has always been present in the world that you're in.
You think of this physical reality as one world, okay? And then we can use language that talks about the spiritual realities as one world. I happen to think it's numerous worlds or many worlds, and that music is another world unto itself, but it's a world where the world of spirit and the world of humans sort of overlap and intersect.
Sound is the basis of form and shape. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. We are told that this is how the world began and how creation took shape. Into the great voids of space came a sound, and matter took shape. Everything owes its existence solely and completely to sound.
It is what we are. We are vibration. We are tone.
The
if we were to zoom in on every single cell, which, you know, scientists have studied, it gets smaller and smaller to an atom, there's just space. And then you find that there's these little particles and there's mostly space. And then you zoom in on that particle and even that particle is mostly space. Essentially, it's infinitely, everything is just space. So what is the space between the space? Well, it's pure energy. And so there's this grid of infinitely interconnected energy happening throughout the universe.
Energy is the seen and unseen vibrations between people. Everything is vibrations. So we call it energy, we just give it that name.
We talk about energy, and you know, a lot of people would discredit a conversation about energy medicine or, you know, energy as something that we can't see it, right? And yet ancient Taoists and the shamanic traditions have mapped out how energy moves through the body. It moves through, you know, in the form of matter. It moves through the blood vessels and the veins, the arteries. That's one way that it moves. It moves through the nervous system. We've also mapped, those things are, you know, kind of the hardwiring, and then it moves through the meridians, the energy channels. There's more subtle forms of energy, less visible.
Science is really coming to explain what spirituality is known for a long time, is that we are beings of energy, beings of light.
The Western mind, due to the use of entheogens and meditative practices, is getting in touch with the kinds of mind sciences that yoga, philosophy, Chinese medicine, and the Taoist approach to understanding the body and mind have known about for, you know, thousands of years.
I began to experiment with moving this energy, this force, around my body, and especially when I was dancing. Suddenly, this energy and moving it through my body and directing it outside of myself became the art form of my dancing. And it was so tangible and so real that nothing I looked at could ever be the same. Because this was something fluid, something outside of myself, and, as I discovered, something that moved with my consciousness, that moved with my thought. As I danced, I also started realizing that many of these other people were dancing as if they were holding energy. They're playing with energy in their hands and playing with the connections of energy in their hands.
So while you're dancing, you know, you're also opening all these energy meridians, right? We're unblocking the energy flow in the body. We're allowing the current to move through, the current that, you know, again, this is a more subtle form, so it's allowing energy to move, which is really kind of the access point for spirit to move through.
It is my understanding that within other cultures, the words spirit and electricity and energy are absolutely interchangeable. So when we're talking about a spiritual realm, we're actually talking about an electrical realm.
You know, really, electricity is just a form of energy. The body runs electricity. It's a conductor, right? The nervous system is conducting electric impulses. All of those things are energy.
We kind of don't really pay attention to electricity now because we're brought up in it. It's just part of the background. It's like air, but that really kind of disguises how peculiar it is and how much it, as much as anything, has transformed our world. It's allowed industrialism to take place. It's allowed globalization, global communication, television, media, all the telegraph, everything is about these weird vibrating electron waves.
When I got involved with the rave scene, immediately I understood that light and sound were being used to facilitate spiritual experiences.
For the dance community to so fully embrace technology as its primary musical and aesthetic inevitably means taking on some of these implications about what technology does, what digital technology does. What does digital technology do? it disincorporates. It takes us away from the realm of matter in a lot of ways. When you're just playing an acoustic guitar, you're dealing with this creature of wind and wood, and it's very old, and it has a sense of a deep tie to planet. When you start dealing with digital technology in particular, and your instrument shrinks down to keypads and screens, you're making a different kind of pact. It's with a different kind of creature that has its own sort of stories to tell. Stories that are more cosmic, stories that pull the rug out from under our sense of being in a solid, material, physical world. The dance community is really engaging this kind of animated energy, which has cosmic implications, which is part of the driver to transform the globe, so that the part of the technology that is transforming the globe is also transforming this weird little underground culture. But because they're doing it consciously to some degree, it's almost like you can play with that much larger energy and get a sense of what it's about, what it wants, what's gonna happen. So in that way, there is a genuine prophetic quality to some of these experiments, both musically and culturally, in terms of how dance music, intentional dance scenes are engaging technology and engaging the sound of the future.
Anyone who's investigating these things seriously has to respect and appreciate that there's spiritual technology.
You're not just looking at rave culture, you're looking at shamanism.
Using music as a tool to be able to participate in a contemporary ritual.
It's like this neo-techno tribal shamanism, and it's I mean, we joke about it because it is kind of funny, but at the same time it's like, no, it's really what it is, and but it's modern with all the technology and the nature and the lights and the sounds and the movement. It's the alchemy of all of those elements coming together to create this synergy.
So what we have to deal with here is a kind of a redefinition of the tribal ritual, which is fitting with the 21st century.
We don't just call it a rave or a party because we think the whole intent, the way that it's organized, and what we're trying to do with it is intrinsically different. For me, I come to the party, I set up all the equipment, I set up my altar, I sprinkle some Ganga water and say the mantras and pray that the cosmic spirit and divine guru will come and bless, that this party is an offering to that spirit and that the spirit will come and bless the party. And so then that's always there, and then I'm just trying to do whatever I can to reach that place and take everybody beyond themselves to that oneness with the moment and with nature, and everything comes together in a kind of what I call a divine bliss, but there might be many different words for it or whatever. It's just oneness and unity.
It doesn't happen automatically. You have to work to get that spiritual sense and that spiritual understanding and peace with the music. But when it does, it's really powerful. It is my religion. There's no doubt about it. Music, it will always be that connection I have with a higher state of consciousness, for sure.
What is happening right now is there's an emerging global dance culture that's based around prayer and intention, a lot of which was happening in indigenous cultures around the world for a long time. So what we're getting now is a return, a rebirth, a reemergence of this sense of intention and purpose through community gathering and through ecstatic states of dance and movement.
I think that there are pieces of it that we're tapping into or starting to see in modern culture, this reclaiming of ancient wisdom. It's not like a go back to the old kind of conservative ways. It's more of like this remembrance of ancient inner knowing, ways of relating to the earth, ways of relating to each other.
With the full moon culture having long existed in the underground, a larger leap in the evolution of outdoor dance tribes was made. Much like Woodstock in the Summer of Love, new multi-day dance festivals began emerging, providing a breeding ground for these small communities to join together and evolve their tradition.
Global family, all colors, all races, one world, united. We dance for peace and the healing of our planet Earth. Peace for all nations, peace for our communities, and peace within ourselves.
Chris Decker, who founded Earth Dance, was struck with the inspiration to do a synchronized event. It would have a theme of peace, and there would be a prayer for peace at the same moment, a track played by all the DJs at the same time around the world. We've had, I think, as many, a couple years ago, as 300 events worldwide, and we estimate the total attendance to be around 100,000. You know, what we're learning is coherence. At these events, the music, you know, carries us across the quantum moment. You know, we're really tuned into that space, that kind of space of unity from which, you know, creation is constantly emerging. So when we, in those states, bring something into our collective mind, it's really impacting that quantum moment. The more minds that are maintaining the vision, and the more coherent that vision becomes of where we want to go, the more the planet helps us get there.
Join all dance floors across the world. Let us connect heart to heart. Through our diversity, we recognize unity. Through our compassion, we recognize peace. Our love is the power to transform our world. Let us send it out now.
Burning Man is one very big ceremony.
50,000 or so people gather in the desert to build a temporary city that's dedicated to art and self-expression. You have to bring everything that you need to survive, and at the end, we tear it all down and make it disappear without a trace.
You know, you're going and you're living in a society where there's no money and there's no judgment, and everybody's there celebrating life and creativity.
Burning Man began with a bunch of radical artists going out to the desert to create a platform for, as they call it, radical self-expression.
Suddenly there was this community of people that were incredibly welcoming and incredibly playful, and everybody was equally welcome at the table, and an annual experiment was born.
Certainly for me, like, Burning Man really rewired my sense of what's possible and introduced me to the prospect that society really could be more utopian and run, you know, on principles other than monetary exchange.
There's a basic infrastructure onto which you are invited to present whatever it is that you want to express. There are no walls. There is very little division between you and your campmates and the people next door. There's just a certain chaos in the environment. Creativity is what's expected there. It's the norm. It's one of your social obligations in attending the event is that you're supposed to bring something that contributes to it being what it is. So that sets a pretty high bar for people to show up with whatever it is that is inside them that they wish to share with the world.
When I first went to Burning Man in the early 90s, it was like a real kind of like Mad Max survivalist, freeform, crazy thing. The only thing considered unacceptable at a certain point was playing dance music.
You know, the rave camp was a camp that was about a mile away, and they were kind of happening concurrently, and they eventually just found their way toward one another.
And then, you know, within a few years, the meme of dance music basically like colonized Burning Man.
Burning Man and the electronic music culture were, you know, really evolving and coming into themselves around the same time, and so there was just a natural momentum there.
There's a kind of like a new tapestry that emerged.
And now electronic music is the daily soundtrack that you hear in Black Rock City. At Burning Man, you're never going to not hear the sound of bass and drums.
I think there is an overlap in ideologies. The general thrust was avant-garde, progressive, artistic expression in various forms. Fittingly, the musical form of expression was in the electronic space.
When you put a bunch of people together out in nature and play some beautiful music, they just naturally fall into this joyous perspective.
Those of us that are involved with organizing Burning Man right now look down the road in 50 to 100 years and imagine a global cultural network, an art movement, a civics movement, a way of looking at life that can be supported by its connection to the center. It's just like at the event. There's no particular dogma or expected form of expression, but there is a lot of expectation around staying connected and staying true to those ideals as people manifest that in the world and start to look at other ways to share that elsewhere beyond the bounds of the orange trash fence. I really look at it as a global movement.
In a general sense, I've considered it a kind of a petri dish of human evolution going on right there, because I think in that place and time there is a higher concentration of novelty in the human sphere than occurs anywhere. And this has to do with the juxtaposition of the exterior environment, including the mix of people there, as well as the incredible internal experiences that are going on in that space that has a role to play, I think. I mean, I think we've seen that it already has had a role in our culture. And it's not unrelated to, you know, the phenomenon of rave culture and intentional dance parties and so forth.
These music festivals have emerged all over the world, with their numbers of attendees almost tripling in the past decade. They have allowed this new party culture to develop its ritualized communion into experimental societies organized around massive dance rituals.
The festival scene definitely plays a huge role today for everything that we've been through the 90s, with the rave culture, with the suppression of that, and also the reemergence of kind of that outdoor festival party vibe, you know, where it was more about the gathering and the intention and the consciousness level of it.
Many of these larger festivals are now really becoming the center points of the dance culture.
These events have given such a wonderful place for people to come and gather and to share ideas, to share innovation.
You know, I think that's what's really important about the festival culture. So the sharing of ideas at these events, where we're really incubating the culture we want to create.
What it's really embracing is an open doorway, an open sense of freedom to experiment with many different forms of wisdom and tools for creating an ecstatic living.
People are actually studying and looking at original tribal cultures and shamanism in particular as models for understanding how to integrate ecstatic states into communities and how healing happens, how natural medicine works.
There's all these cultures, all these currents that come together, and there's a commonality that's found through these simple rhythms, through these movements, through this awakened, aware state of mind. And what seems to be happening is that there's all these pockets and all these opportunities for people to wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up.
What's happening is art is becoming the new religion. It is non-dogmatic, it is based on personal experience, and you're actually becoming empowered and creating your own religious experience. Art and music and dance is the greatest gateway to reconnect us.
By linking creativity and spirituality, it brings this evolutionary force, evolutionary creative force, into our relationship with the divine.
The dance floor is our temple, the DJ booth is our pulpit, and the DJs are our priests, and the music is the religion. And I believe that that religion belongs to the whole world.
What we're doing right now is creating a culture where we can integrate these tools and these concepts into our everyday life and into our everyday action.
We want to take it beyond just getting high on the dance floor and having this kind of peak experience. We really want to build community. We really want to find ways to take that experience and integrate it much more into the fabric of our day-to-day lives.
Bringing the beauty and the connection that we found on the dance floor, off the dance floor, and into real life.
I think of a culture that is awakening by liberating anything that binds or limits experience.
And that's what culture on the planet is evolving into, this thing that we don't even know. We're just going with it. All we know is that it's really great to come together and dance and celebrate and have that connection to the earth and to the universe.
The revolution has begun. We are gathering, the tribes have gathered, and it's a global gathering, and it's the beginning of a revolution that's going to take us forward to the next decade to amazing changes.
What we're doing at these gatherings is we're preparing for that shift. We're practicing for the cosmic dance.
Part of the ethos of the kind of electronic dance scene is there's this sort of sense of a kind of growing intensity, a bit of a millennialism. There's some change that's just about to come.
In the mainstream media, one date has become ever more popular: 2012. Within the dance culture, the popularity of this date has been adopted by many in the scene as a means to explain the evolution of their movement.
When the Mayan information started coming in, it just made sense. It just kind of connected in with what we were already doing, what we viewed as like the evolution that we were going through.
I think there's a lot of resonance between the types of culture that grows around electronic music and this sense of prophecy and transformation.
What makes things a little different now in terms of this apocalyptic sensibility is the fact that across the globe so many things are changing so rapidly. People's individual experience of their own transformation, their visionary experience of the transformations in the world, the things that are coming to a head, are emboldened and supported by actual data that's coming in. Hundreds, thousands of visionaries in different fields of the world, in science, in medicine, in ecology, looking ahead going, whoa, something's really big on the horizon.
We're faced right now with the grave need to make a huge transition, to make basic sort of down-to-earth changes like our entire technological structure, our energy infrastructure, the economic structures that support what we've got now.
All these things that we take for granted, that there will always be roads and supermarkets and running water, that the financial system will always remain the same. Everything that has been established is now being called into question. Our economic system is faltering and the middle class is disappearing. It's leaving a lot of people wondering simply how to survive in this world.
It's our disconnection from not only our environment and from nature, but our own nature that is creating a major imbalance and a major schism across the planet.
We are extremely secluded in our ways of being. We're divided by countries, and we're divided by flags, and we're divided by so much. We make it a point to divide ourselves.
And from that place, we cause all kinds of destruction, havoc, ill health, ill well-being, pain and suffering, not only ourselves but on each other.
It's forcing us to grow and to change the way that we live our lives and interact with one another and our environment. It's making us ask, what is the next phase of evolution? What does a world full of self-realized people look like? Are we able to realize our true potential and build a symbiotic society based on a common sense of morality, compassion, and understanding? Our culture, which surrounds this experience on the dance floor, is exploring these questions, and together we are learning how to co-create this future we all dream of.
When all is said and done, we're looking for peace. We're looking to be at peace, looking to experience love within ourselves and each other, to come back home to that place. And dance, as well as song, as well as music, the arts really help to engage our brains, our minds, our bodies, our hearts, our souls in a way that help to free us up from an old paradigm, an old stagnant way of being.
When we can find things that can heal us and inspire us and show us how to think about things in a higher way beyond ourselves and to develop our imagination and our vision, that's the fuel of humanity.
The greatest gift you can give to this world is to heal yourself. It's to liberate yourself, because that releases resonance. It allows the spirit of life, allows the power, this living power, to come through our soul, mind, and body, through our hearts into this world.
the essence of all the great spiritual traditions is about finding your heart. It's, you know, there's nothing more simple, and yet that's our great work, right? It's like, how complicated could it be? We all know, because we make it as complicated as we possibly can up here, and this journey from here to here is the greatest pilgrimage that there is. And you know, it is the great journey that we each have to make. It's an inner journey. That's where I say all those roads lead home. If you know, whatever that practice is, as long as it's taking you deeper and deeper into your heart space, that's the road. That will lead you to the perfect road for you. That will lead you home.
What we're needing to do as a species on the planet is come back to our nature. That is our salvation.
At some point, a recognition of you're okay, I'm okay, everybody's okay. There's no fear involved in the allowing for just what is real to be.
It doesn't get much more fundamental than that. Like, you're okay the way you are, you know, and it's not just that you're okay, you're great.
More and more of these gatherings are allowing people to see what it looks like for other people to dance like nobody's watching, to just be pure in themselves and express whatever that is.
Maybe that's the source. It's like finding, while we're here in our bodies, an ability to just self-express freely without ego. And that's the giving the love to the universe by being, you know, happy in yourself in the moment. And I found that through these parties.
I think a lot of our gatherings give people that space to have that personal transformation that can be carried out on a larger stage.
And so the dance culture is an opportunity to come in and to engage our own lives, is to participate. I think that's what divinity, what spirituality is about. It's about full participation.
When I'm in that place of, you know, a religious experience, for me that's a place of unity and connection where there are no boundaries between me and someone else. So when people are having this experience on the dance floor, in a way it really doesn't matter what their cosmology is. It doesn't really matter what their belief system is. They're connected regardless of that. And I see this is one of the things that is being modeled in these communities. How to be together in a way that's really open, that's really loving, that's really supportive.
I think our whole purpose here, the human community on the planet, is to find a way to get along with each other, love each other, be healthy, happy, whole.
I do believe that we have made great steps forward, and that the trans generation and the electronic generation on a whole have led the way and are still leading the way to an emergence of a new culture.
We're going to grow past this horrible and wonderful and amazing time that we're in, and that there will be something after. And it feels, I think, to a lot of people that we're trying to create that thing that comes after.
You know, all these prophecies that we hear about speak to a kind of common evolution. This is not just like one person who goes out and leads the way through, you know, through this dark time. It's this collective awakening and remembrance that happens.
It's not about creating an alternative culture, which is basically different from the conventional culture. This is about a new paradigm of cultural engineering for a completely integrated humanity.
It's not that we just leave this world behind and take off for the next, right? Or that everything just crumbles and then it's over. We actually bring in, we have to kind of evolve through this level of change. And I think that dance culture is a piece of how we're learning to evolve. It's a piece of how we're learning to use our physical bodies to reach to spirit, to become that bridge between heaven and earth.
We now have an option, a possibility for change through the rave culture, through the building of community, through the music and the dissolution of boundaries. The rave culture are showing how you create a community of caring, intelligent people who've got their heart connected to their head and their heart connected to their feet, so that through dance, feeling, philosophy, art, we manifest the creativity that is going to be necessary for us to save ourselves. This is the key, you see. If the expansion of consciousness does not play a major role in the human future, what kind of future is it going to be?
I turned to electronic music mainly because I found I couldn't get the kinds of sounds I wanted with live players and ordinary instruments. I wanted very fast running passages and complicated rhythms which players can't perform. I wanted pitches which lie in between the pitches of the regular instruments, and I wanted particularly sound qualities which no instrument or combination of instruments can readily produce.
The range of possibilities is enormous, extending from popular rock and roll settings to the most abstract kind of concert hall music. One of the things that I enjoy most about electronic music is its immediacy. The composer normally waits quite a long time between the time he puts notes on paper and hears his piece performed in a concert hall. But a composer working with electronic music is more like a painter or a sculptor who works directly with his medium. You hear the sounds as they are created. Another challenging part of electronic music is working with sophisticated electronic equipment, such as computers or electronic sound synthesizers.
use of synthesizers and computers, it is possible to imitate, change, and create sound. A whole new world of creative possibilities has been opened to the musician by electronic music.